Hey guys, welcome to 3 Mississippi. We're going to talk about a subject today that if you've been paying attention, you're already very aware of. And if you have not been paying attention, you need to pay attention. Okay, this is important. This is the looming food crisis. It's upon us, all right? And before we get started, I'd like for you to drop a comment below and tell us one thing that you are doing to prepare your family for this food crisis. Let's get into it.
I'm Sid.
I'm Mike.
And well, like we said, you may have been noticing not only some shortages, but some price increases at the grocery store. Things like eggs right now, for example, are hard to come by. And when you do find them, I have seen them as much as $18 for a carton of eggs, which is mind blowing to me. A lot of people are used to paying, maybe $2.50, $3 a dozen. To see them up that high is a little scary. And there's other things, pockets of things on the shelf that the prices have increased, and maybe there's not quite as many of them on the shelf, like some of your dairy products, some of your beef and things like that in certain areas are already being kind of hard to find. And when you do find them, the prices are like you've never paid before in your life. So what does that mean for us and feeding our families?
So depending on what news channel you subscribe to, you can come up with your own reason for what's causing these shortages, whether it's drought, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's shortage of workers. Bottom line is it's happening. Whether it's politics, it's happening. We have a shortage of food, and that shortage of food is leading to inflation well beyond normal inflation rates, okay? So if you go to the grocery store and a head of iceberg lettuce is 100% more than it used to be, or romaine lettuce 100% more than it used to be, tomatoes, green beans, all of these items, the reason that those items are so inflated is because something is causing them to be challenging to get or expensive to get for the place that you're buying them from. Okay, we don't have to really get any further into it than that. But if we want to talk about how you can mitigate that for you and your family, you have to get it closer. And the closest place to get it from is from your own yard, right?
You don't only have to be living in a rural area to find people locally growing some of these things. If you look 20 minutes outside the city limit, guaranteed you're going to find some people that are maybe on a small scale doing some farming and selling some of the things that are extra from their household that they'd be willing to share with you. There's lots of groups online that you can join, Facebook groups in your area, things like that you would be able to get some of these things a lot closer and, sort of cut out the middleman, if you will. A lot of times you're also going to find a lot better quality that way.
It's going to be fresher, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be way more fresh. And chances are you're going to be able to build up a nice community of places in your area that you can go for certain goods. And maybe you'll learn a little bit about some of those goods and where they come from and how they're handled in the process.
So like she said, buying locally is very important. Another thing you can do to help mitigate this problem is buy in bulk when an item is available, right? So if your local grocery store has not had good produce, you love carrots, and carrots are good for you, and they haven't had a lot of carrots, or the ones they've had have been kind of rubbery, and they get a shipment in, buy enough that you can blanch them and freeze them. Buy enough that you can can them. These are things that we're going to go over in videos throughout this series.
Even.
Absolutely. There's a lot of things we're going to teach you guys about how to put food up. Right now, I want you to start thinking about where you're going to get that food from, right? And start practicing that. We will be doing videos on canning and on fermenting and on blanching and freezing. But I want you to think about when those food products are available, don't hoard them. Don't buy more than you're going to be able to use, and they are then going to go bad and be wasted. I want you to buy as much as your family's going to need, put them in the freezer, put them on the shelf, be able to feed your family throughout the off season with what is in season now, which is what we all used to do. Back before refrigerated vehicles, People bought locally. They raised enough food throughout the growing season to feed their family through the off season. And that's something that you should absolutely be figuring out how to do for your family.
I know that some of you watching this may be saying, well, I live in an apartment, or, I live in the middle of a big industrial city, and this is something only rural people do, or people out in the sticks do. And I just want to remind you guys that that is not the case. There is so much that you can do and get locally, even if you're in a big city, even if you're not used to, quote unquote, this prepper lifestyle of doing these sorts of things. Think of it as like making your own food savings account, right? You maybe take a certain percentage out of your paycheck to go into a 401k or an IRA or something like that, right? This is sort of like doing that, but being able to do it with food on your table to feed yourself, your family. If things were to get really bad, maybe your extended family and friends in your area, depending on the situation or your income level. These are things to consider, because food is an important commodity, and it is something that sustains life. And beyond just what we think of as, the convenience of being able to go to the store and guaranteed certain items are going to be there. In some parts of the country already right now, that's not a guarantee. And there are also things right now that, yes, they might be there, but they are so far out of your household budget to buy a normal amount of that it becomes unreasonable for you, and you end up finding things that are maybe not as healthy or not as nutritious to feed your family, because you're trying to make cuts to make your budget work. So think of this as making your budget stretch. Look at it like a financial investment as well for your family.
Some of you guys enjoy watching your financial portfolio grow. You like to spreadsheet stuff out. Maybe you follow cryptocurrency. You're trying to predict trends, and that's a fun thing to do, right? Well, food can be the same way, okay? 100% it can be. You can plan out nutrition that your family is going to need throughout the course of a year, through the winter and the non-growing season, and you can figure, and you can play a fun game. You can say, you know what? I am going to skip the ice cream and the nachos
and the
for
latte
the next,
at the drive-through.
Right, for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reallocate those funds over here. And I'm going to buy a couple of bags of rice, some cooking oil, some peanut butter, and maybe a case of some sort of a bean or legume that's high in protein. This is a fun game that you can play. And you can say, I'm going to reallocate $27 that I was going to spend on junk food, and I'm going to spend it on a preparedness, not a financial preparedness, but a food preparedness, like Sid was saying, for my family.
Bank. It's your food bank.
It's your food bank. I love it. Your food bank.
That's what I always think of it as, is that's our food bank. Our pantry is our food bank.
Right. And we'll be doing more videos and tutorials on how to then budget yourself within that food bank, and how to use it, and how to kind of cycle through it. Mm-hmm. That is not today's video, but we will be doing that. All right, so let's talk about one of the things that you can and absolutely should be spending some of those dollars that you're reallocating right now into your food bank, and that is seeds. Guys, buy some seeds. I cannot stress to you how important seeds are to solving this problem that I'm discussing with you, that we're discussing with you about the food crisis. There is no more local source of food than that food which you harvest from your front yard. Mm-hmm. I don't care if you live in a house on a small tract in a development, okay? If you have a planter box in front of your house that has flowers in it, it needs to have collards in it, okay? It needs to have kale in it. It needs to have some neatly, organized radishes and carrots in it. You should be growing, if you have any dirt that you could grow food in, you should be growing food, 100%.
Mike's always had a green thumb, me not so much. But when we bought our first house, we lived in a housing development. We had a very tiny postage stamp of a yard, but Mike built tiered garden boxes, and he grew a lot of our vegetables. And I credit a large part of that to the fact that Frankie is good at eating her vegetables, always has been. She's never been picky about it. I have had so many people tell me, oh, but my kids won't eat, collard greens, or my kids won't eat broccoli, or my kids won't eat. And I'm like,
They will if they grow them.
They will if they grow them, and they will if that's what's provided to them.
Right.
They're not going to starve themselves. And
Right.
if potato chips are not the option, but some collard greens or some broccoli or things like that,
Fresh
zucchini,
snap peas.
yeah, those things are going to be the option. I mean, we have pictures of Frankie digging in the garden when she's barely still in diapers, barely like walking, and pulling carrots out of the ground and gnawing on them. So she still does that to this day. Dirt on it and all, she doesn't care. But it's such a great thing. And Mike's actually gone over to friends' houses in the past and helped them build their gardens for their kids that were picky eaters, and have seen the difference of them tending to their garden and growing it, and being able to reap those rewards, and those kids being able to eat those healthy vegetables that they have grown. Now, that's not to say that kids that are picky eaters are always going to just magically turn around. No. However, you can definitely, in your own way, supply some of those healthier options. And when we're in times like this, where those healthier options are going to be the ones that are more equitable and going to make more financial sense for your family when things are a little bit tougher, they're going to have to learn to not be so picky, and they're going to have to learn to eat some of the things that maybe they're not used to seeing on a plate. And being creative with your cooking and how you incorporate those is also going to be a challenge for you, which maybe we'll tackle in one of the videos
Right.
here later on. But just keeping in mind that kids will eat what's available. If you teach them that this is what's available and that you can grow it in your own yard and that they can be a part of that, they will definitely want to be involved, and they will want to try it, and they will at least give those new foods a chance.
And want or not, folks, you're responsible for feeding those children. As a parent, that is one of your most important duties in life. And you're not responsible to feed them chicken nuggets or Franks, ballpark Franks. You're just responsible to feed them and keep them alive. And frankly, if you're feeding them chicken nuggets and ballpark Franks, you're probably not doing them any good later in life.
Yeah.
So again, if your kid's a picky eater, they'll work it out if the only thing available and they're hungry is collard greens.
Yeah, because honestly, that is the number one roadblock I hear people throw up when they say like, oh, well, there's no point in me growing that because my kids won't eat it. Well, you're the parent.
That's a terrible
You
answer.
tell them what they're going to eat until they're 18. That's just the way it works, guys.
Right. So guys, after you determine how much space you have to be able to grow something, whether it's a patch of dirt on the ground in your yard, whether it's a large patch of dirt, whether it's containers on a patio, you figure out how much space you have to grow something. And now you need to figure out what things you're going to grow. And you can do a little bit of research. You can email me. You can message me through here. You can friend me on Facebook and message me. I will respond. If you have questions about gardening, I will be excited to help you.
Do not message me because I do not have a green thumb.
But start thinking about, okay, radishes take 28 to 32 days. We're going to do some radishes. Those are going to come. And radishes, you can eat them fresh. They taste amazing. You can add them to stir fries and soups. You can ferment them. You can blanch and freeze them.
And the radish greens are so good too.
Oh,
people discount
absolutely.
the radish tops, but those are so excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same with beet greens and turnip greens and all these things that, carrots take longer. So plant some carrots and some radishes and maybe some turnips, and you're going to have things coming ripe at different times. Zucchini, guys. If you have space to plant a zucchini plant, it's going to get about this big around, 3 feet. That thing is going to continue to put out zucchinis like crazy through the growing season. We can usually eat zucchinis, our family, completely, all the zucchinis we want off of a few plants.
Yeah.
So zucchini is something that it's easy to grow. And once it starts providing zucchini, it's going to continue to do so until the season's over. Kale and collards. Guys, these are healthy. I want you to do a little bit of research on the food value of kale and of collards. These are things that they're easy to grow. Once you get them established, they just continue. You just go out and pick a little bit off of them every day and make a salad, and they just keep adding more. These are going to grow. And I've had kale and collards live for perennials.
Yeah.
Through the winter and into the next growing season, while I'm planting new fresh ones, I
Chard.
still have the old one.
Chard does that sometimes.
Swiss
too.
chard.
Yeah.
Guys, these are easy things to grow.
And they're so versatile. Like, I mean, if you think about it, when you go to like a, you know, people, I'll just keep going back to this example of people that live in the city that'll pay like $10 for a smoothie that's a green smoothie. What do you think is in them? Like, they're using those radish tops and those greens and the kale and whatever, and you can do the same thing. Like, you can be growing that and eating them in stir fries and soups and salads, in casseroles, in however whatever form you want to eat them in. And it's just a matter sometimes of shifting what you're used to eating and what you're used to maybe thinking that you're capable of doing. Starting out with some of these more resilient and quick turnaround foods that you're planting really does give you that kind of immediate release that we sort of need sometimes. Of, you know, so a lot of the reason why, you know, people start out on the gym on January 1st, but they don't see a result by January 3rd, so they're out of there, right? Having this quick turnaround time and getting that, you know, being able to reap what you've sown so quickly with some of these is really kind of a good affirmation to kind of keep you going and kind of give you that little like endorphin boost of like, okay, it worked. I can keep doing this.
You know, I want you to think about some of the things that you rely on and you don't realize you rely on them. Things like tomatoes. Guys, tomatoes are getting very difficult to get right now. And the inflation on tomatoes is going through the roof. And again, the whys are not what this video is all about, but it's happening and it's real. Now, I want you to look at this pack of tomatoes, seeds right here. This pack of tomato seeds would have cost me $4.99 in previous seasons, and it was $10.85. Even seeds are going up in price by a lot, okay? You can't wait. You can't say, okay, I'm taking notes, I'm educating myself so that if I need to, I'll be able to. These seeds will last a long time in these containers like this right here in a cool, dry environment, okay? So why are you waiting until seeds are worth their weight in gold? You need to order some seeds and get them now and start working on a plan for how you're going to get them planted. So with this pack of tomatoes right here, okay, my goal is to grow enough tomatoes to be able to, you know, maybe blanch and freeze some of it, but for the most part, make a bunch of pasta sauce. Pasta sauce, guys, is in so many things that you don't realize. Pasta's cheap, it's easy to store, it doesn't require a bunch of special environmental conditions, so you can have pasta on the shelf, you can have rice on the shelf, and a little bit of pasta sauce goes a long way, especially if you also have canned meat on the shelf, which is a whole nother thing we're going to talk to you guys about, canning meat. You can prepare to feed your family off of things that you've grown, harvested, and put up yourself for an entire year, but at least for several months to get you through a crisis. So you need to come up with a plan to plant some tomatoes, and you can work out through our series of videos how you're going to put those up before it's time to harvest them, okay? But you need to come up with a plan now. And we can talk about how I start seeds and when I start seeds. I'm happy to share this with you guys.
We all remember when the world shut down in spring of 2020. And one of the things that I was very thankful for during that weird time where we still didn't really know what was going on and everybody was kind of freaking out, I didn't have to go to the grocery store. We had, between what was growing and what we already had shelved, I had food. We had meat on the shelves. We had vegetables. We had things that we had fermented and jarred and pickled and jarred, and we were fine.
We had a huge garden going.
We did have a huge garden going, and we had, you know, our chickens and our eggs and our meat that we had raised and processed, and some of it was canned. And there's things like that when incidences, and I've talked about this before with you guys on our channel, that really made me realize just that short little span of 2020 when the world felt like it was going crazy. Not that it still doesn't feel like it's going crazy from time to time, but for different reasons. That it really proved to me that, like, okay, we are on the right track, because while a lot of people that I knew were panicking, couldn't find things, shelves were empty, I was comfortable at home. able to feed my family, and I wasn't having to go out and panic buy things that some people that I knew were having to go and panic buy because they didn't have their food bank set up.
Right. So guys, get your seeds on order. Get your seeds on order and start thinking about areas that you can plant things. Meanwhile, we need to talk about how you're going to get those seeds started, okay? And we're going to do a detailed video on how I start my seeds probably next week following this. So that's going to give you time to get some seeds on order and start looking at your yard, okay? But what I want you to think about is, how are you going to start those seeds? And what I have set up right here is a really inexpensive setup. You've only got to skip a few bags of Doritos and a couple of lattes to be able to set up a system that's going to give you a little heat mat that you can set your seed starters on, and you can get your little humidity domes and some lights, and you can grow seeds indoors into, you know, nursery-sized plants in the winter, in the dead of winter, so that they're ready to put out in your yard after the last frost. And you're getting out ahead of this. Remember, you need to treat this like it's a crisis, guys. You need to start now, take action today, and start thinking about what are the next actions that you need to take and in what order to be able to be feeding your family as soon as possible, both locally from the local growers in your area, join the CSAs, and from what you can grow yourself.
Yeah, and remember too, just when there's things on sale at the store, or when you find a good supply of something, like Mike mentioned earlier, that you feel capable of canning or saving, starting small is okay. And we realize that some of you that watch our channel, you're living on acres, you're used to, you know, catching, cleaning, growing your own food. And maybe this video isn't for you, but you may still learn some tips and tricks through this series that you might go, oh, I had forgotten that, or oh, that's a good point, I didn't know that. So while this might be more geared towards some of you that maybe this is your first foray into thinking about building your own food bank and being a little bit more self-sufficient, to whatever degree that means for you, whether it's buying things at the store and canning them yourself, or maybe it is starting a small little garden, whatever that means for you, we're going to help kind of guide you through it. We're going to break it down for you and kind of make you feel, because you can, that this is something that you can definitely do, that it is an attainable goal, and that it's something that you can definitely do with your family to help increase your own food bank at home, so that you're not stuck in a spot where you're now paying $20 for a carton of eggs.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We appreciate you. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We will see you next time.